The legend of the Flying Dutchman has haunted sailors for centuries, a chilling tale of a ghost ship doomed to wander the seas for all eternity. Rooted in the stormy waters of the Cape of Good Hope, this myth speaks of curses, hubris, and the unrelenting power of the ocean. But what lies behind the shrouded sails and ghostly crew of this infamous vessel? In this video, we'll explore the origins of the legend, uncovering the lore that shaped it, the historical figures who may have inspired it, and documented chilling encounters that continue to fuel its mystique. The Flying Dutchman, a name that echoes through maritime folklore, sending shivers down the spines of sailors and storytellers alike. Born from the superstitions of the sea and the whispers of doomed voyages, the tale is said to have originated in the stormy waters of the Cape of Good Hope, where treacherous tides and fierce winds make even the bravest mariners falter. At the heart of this legend is a man known as Captain Hendrik Vanderdecken, a Dutch seafarer whose ambition and defiance of nature sealed his fate. According to stories passed down through generations, Vanderdecken, determined to round the perilous Cape of Good Hope during a violent storm, swore an unholy oath. He would sail until the end of time if that's what it took to conquer the raging seas. His arrogance and blasphemy enraged the heavens, and as punishment, he and his crew were condemned to an eternal voyage, cursed to wander the oceans without respite. The Flying Dutchman is no ordinary ghost ship. Those who claim to have seen it describe a vessel bathed in an eerie, otherworldly glow, its tattered sails fluttering in winds that defy logic. Its hull, weathered by centuries of unrelenting sea spray, seems to move with a grace that mocks the violent storms it navigates. Some say the ship's crew are shadowy figures, their hollow eyes reflecting the torment of their endless journey. Others speak of spectral voices carried by the wind, a haunting melody of despair that lingers long after the ship vanishes into the mist. It is said that encountering the Flying Dutchman is a harbinger of doom. Ships that cross its path often find themselves beset by tragedy, from sudden storms to mysterious disappearances. Yet, some tales hint at a glimmer of humanity within the curse. According to one version of the legend, Vanderdecken is allowed to step ashore once every 7 years to search for a true love who might break the curse. If he fails, he returns to his spectral ship, doomed to wait another 7 years. These tales, rooted in oral tradition and the superstitions of seafarers, have shaped the enduring legend of the Flying Dutchman. However, where fiction meets fact is in the documented voyages of Bernard Fock, a Dutch captain whose extraordinary journeys may have inspired this haunting myth. Let's now turn to his story and explore the historical basis for the legend. The Tale of Bernard Fock, 1678. Every legend has its origin, and the chilling tale of the Flying Dutchman is no exception. Rooted in the fears and superstitions of sailors, it is said to have emerged from the extraordinary life of one man. Bernard Fock, a Dutch sea captain of unparalleled skill and speed, may well have been the spark that ignited the enduring myth of the ghostly ship cursed to roam the seas forever. But how did a remarkable sailor's story transform into one of maritime folklore's most haunting tales? Bernard Fock, a captain for the Dutch East India Company, was renowned in the 1600s for his astonishingly fast voyages between the Netherlands and Java, Indonesia. His most famous journey, recorded in 1678, saw him cover this distance in just 3 months and 4 days, an incredible feat for the time. Such speed was unheard of, and it left his contemporaries baffled. Whispers began to spread. Was Bernard Fock a mere mortal? Or had he made a sinister pact with the devil to tame the seas? His fast trips fed the superstition that Captain Fock had made a pact with the devil, who lived on the ship as a black dog. The pact was that the captain would have favorable winds for 7 years. And when his ship was lost somewhere, this only fed the rumors. The rumors grew darker with each telling. Fock's name became entwined with superstition. They said his ship would always arrive shrouded in mist, and his crew silent, ghost-like figures. The tales fueled fears that his success came at a price. In fact, Fox's reputation was so infamous that a statue in his honor, erected near the harbor of Batavia, was later destroyed by the English in 1808, perhaps an attempt to erase his name from history. As time passed, Bernard Fox's story blurred with legend, giving rise to the chilling myth of the Flying Dutchman. It is said that the ghostly ship is cursed to roam the oceans for eternity, never finding safe harbor, bringing misfortune to all who cross its path. Was Bernard Fox truly cursed? Did his uncanny speed spark envy, or did he fall victim to the sailor's tendency to weave myth from reality? Whatever the truth, Fox's name has endured, forever etched in the folklore of the seas. John Macdonald's account of the Flying Dutchman, 1790. In 1790, John Macdonald, a seasoned traveler and chronicler, published his memoir, Travels in Various Parts of Europe, Asia, and Africa, during a series of 30 years and upwards. Among the many experiences documented in his book lies a haunting tale from the treacherous waters near the Cape of Good Hope, also known as the Cape of Storms. This region, infamous for its violent tempests and unpredictable tides, was the setting for what his crew believed to be an encounter with the legendary ghost ship, the Flying Dutchman. The incident occurred during the night, as Macdonald's ship battled rough seas on its journey past the southern tip of Africa. While the wind howled and the waves crashed against the hull, a strange light was spotted on the horizon. At first, the glow seemed faint, barely distinguishable from the stars scattered across the stormy sky. But as it drew closer, the light grew brighter, taking on an unnatural reddish hue that set it apart from anything the sailors had seen before. The outline of a ship began to emerge. It moved slowly but steadily, its sails illuminated as though they were aflame, yet no flames licked at the fabric, and the vessel showed no sign of burning. The eerie glow enveloping the ship revealed its tattered sails and a hull that looked ancient, weathered by time and elements. It gave the impression of a vessel long past its prime, yet it glided through the water with an unworldly grace, defying the roaring winds and turbulent waves around it. The crew, seasoned mariners who had faced countless perils at sea, were gripped with a fear unlike anything they had known. They whispered among themselves, their voices hushed and trembling as they identified the apparition as the Flying Dutchman. According to maritime folklore, seeing the ghost ship was a dire omen, a harbinger of doom that foretold disaster for any who witnessed its passage. Macdonald himself did not claim to have seen the vessel, but he recorded the reactions of his crew in vivid detail. The men described the ship as being enveloped in an unnatural silence, with no sound of creaking timbers or crashing waves accompanying its approach. Its presence was as silent as it was menacing, and its sudden disappearance into the mist was as unsettling as its arrival. The sighting left a lasting impression on the crew. Even after the ship vanished, a sense of dread lingered on board. Every creak of their own ship's timbers, every sudden gust of wind, was interpreted as a sign of impending misfortune. While no immediate disaster struck, the psychological weight of the event hung over the men for the remainder of their journey. This account, one of the earliest written references to the Flying Dutchman, provides a rare glimpse into how such legends took hold among sailors. In an era when the sea was vast and unknowable, and every journey carried the risk of catastrophe, such sightings served as a focal point for the fears and superstitions of those who braved the ocean's depths. Macdonald's documentation is unique not only for its detailed description of the crew's encounter, but also for the historical context it provides. The story demonstrates how deeply maritime folklore was woven into the lives of sailors and how tales of ghost ships like the Flying Dutchman became enduring symbols of the mysterious and the unknown. A phantom ship on the horizon, 1881. Among the annals of maritime history lies a haunting tale, documented not in hearsay but in the official logs of HMS Bacchante. On July 11, 1881, two young royals, Prince Albert Victor and George of Wales, were aboard the vessel as it sailed through the South Atlantic. Both heirs to the British throne, their first-hand accounts of that fateful night lend rare and chilling authenticity to the legend of the Flying Dutchman. What began as a calm and clear evening at sea would soon transform into a moment etched forever in the folklore of sailors. The waters of the South Atlantic were tranquil on the night of July 10th, the ship's sails slack in the absence of wind. Above, the sky stretched out as a canopy of stars, their faint light reflected in the gently rolling waves. The crew, weary from the sweltering heat of the day, found themselves lulled into the quiet rhythms of the evening, unaware of the terror that lay beyond the horizon. Conversations dwindled, boots softly creaked against the decks, and the distant sound of the sea lapping against the hull was the only company for the men on watch. But as the early hours of July 11th approached, the stillness grew unnerving, as though the ocean itself were holding its breath. At precisely 4 a.m., the eerie quiet was shattered by the sharp cry of the forecastle watchman, the Flying Dutchman, off the port bow. The crew scrambled to the railings, their tired eyes snapping open at the sight before them. A strange red glow flickered on the horizon, bathing the water in a fiery hue. Within the light, the unmistakable silhouette of a brig emerged, a phantom ship aglow with a brilliance that defied natural explanation. Its masts, spars, and sails gleamed as if lit from within, the ghostly aura casting an ethereal glow on the dark sea. The officer of the watch gripped the bridge railing in stunned silence, while a midshipman was dispatched to investigate. By the time he reached the forecastle, however, the vision had vanished as swiftly as it had appeared. The sea returned to its calm, undisturbed state, the glow extinguished, leaving only confusion and unease in its wake. 13 men, including the watchman and the officer on the bridge, swore they had seen the same unearthly sight. Whispers swept through the ship like a chilling wind. Had they truly seen the Flying Dutchman? For sailors, the ghost ship was more than just a tale. It was a harbinger of doom, an omen of misfortune. And misfortune was quick to strike. By mid-morning, tragedy fell upon the crew. The very man who had first sighted the phantom brig lost his balance, and plummeted from the foretopmast crosstrees to the deck below. His broken body was a stark reminder of the dangers of the sea, and his death cast a heavy shadow over the ship. At 4:15 p.m., with the ship hove to, the crew gathered for a solemn burial at sea. The young sailor, a man of great promise, was committed to the deep with full honors, his untimely death weighing heavily on the hearts of those who had known him. As the HMS Bacchante resumed its journey, the encounter with the spectral brig remained fresh in the minds of all aboard. To this day, the official logs of HMS Bacchante preserve this eerie tale, a chilling testimony to what the crew believed they had witnessed. These logs, along with the memoirs of Prince George, can still be explored by history enthusiasts. The original records are held at the National Archives in Kew, London, while published accounts can be accessed in works like The Cruise of Her Majesty's Ship Bacchante, 1879 to 1882, which has been digitized for public access on platforms such as Google Books and Internet Archive. Was the phantom ship a mirage, a play of light and shadow on the restless sea? Or was it truly the Flying Dutchman, come to warn of impending doom? The answers remain elusive, much like the ghostly brig itself. But for the men of HMS Bacchante, the encounter was all too real, a haunting reminder that the sea holds secrets it may never fully reveal. The ghostly encounter on the South African coast, 1939. In the early hours of a serene morning in 1939, a group of locals gathered at a beach on the South African coast for a swim. The sun was just beginning to rise, casting a soft golden glow over the calm ocean. The sound of waves lapping gently against the shore created a peaceful backdrop for their morning ritual. But what began as a typical day of relaxation would soon turn into one of the most mysterious and unforgettable events in their lives. While they were laughing and enjoying the water, someone in the group suddenly froze, pointing out towards the horizon. A massive ship had appeared out of nowhere, seemingly materializing from thin air. The sight was both mesmerizing and unsettling. The vessel was an imposing East Indiaman, its sails wide open, billowing in the non-existent wind. It sailed smoothly and silently across the water, moving far too fast for the calm sea conditions. The ship's appearance was extraordinary. Its weathered wood bore the marks of centuries of exposure to the element. The masts and spars were intact but looked as though they belonged to a bygone era. The design of the ship was unmistakably from the 17th century, a time of great maritime exploration and trade, the golden age of the Dutch East India Company. What truly stunned the onlookers was the eerie silence that accompanied the ship. No creaking of wood, no flapping of sails, no shouts of crew, nothing but an otherworldly stillness. As the ship glided by, its ghostly aura was amplified by the soft morning light, making it appear almost translucent. The group of beachgoers stood frozen, unable to look away from the spectral sight. After a few minutes, the ship vanished just as mysteriously as it had appeared. It didn't sink below the waves or fade into the distance. It simply disappeared, leaving no trace behind. The stunned witnesses exchanged bewildered glances, trying to make sense of what they had just seen. The story became even more curious when they began to describe the ship. Each person gave a detailed and consistent account of its appearance. The tall masts, the intricate rigging, the shape of the hull, details that unmistakably pointed to a Dutch East Indiaman. What baffled historians and skeptics alike was that none of the witnesses had any prior knowledge of ships from that era. They were ordinary townsfolk, with no access to the historical expertise required to describe such a vessel so accurately. Word of the sighting spread quickly, and local newspapers picked up the story. Speculation ran wild. Was it a mirage, a trick of the light, or something far more supernatural? Many were quick to link the event to the legendary Flying Dutchman, the cursed ship doomed to sail the seas for eternity. Could this ghostly vessel have been the infamous phantom ship that countless sailors had whispered about for centuries? While skeptics dismissed the sighting as mass hysteria or a shared hallucination, the witnesses stood by their account. For them, it was not just a story or a legend, it was a real, unexplainable experience that they would never forget. The myth of the Flying Dutchman is deeply tied to the sea's unpredictable nature and the superstitions of sailors. Stories of how to encounter this cursed vessel are rare, but whispers of maritime folklore suggest that certain conditions or actions can increase the chances of an encounter. These accounts are not rituals in the modern sense, but rather a collection of practices believed to align one's fate with that of the ghostly ship. The most common sightings of the Flying Dutchman occur in areas notorious for treacherous waters, particularly the Cape of Good Hope. Sailors from the 17th and 18th centuries believed that ships passing through this perilous route during violent storms were at higher risk of encountering the Dutchman. Folklore suggests that deliberately setting course through these storm-laden waters, particularly during heavy rain or strong winds, increases the likelihood of crossing paths with the spectral ship. Historical logs often mention sightings during moments of extreme weather, where the living and the spirit world seem to converge. The Dutchman is said to appear as an omen of doom, warning sailors of impending disaster. Another recurring motif in Dutchman lore is the use of light. It is said that a lantern hung at the bow of a ship or left swinging from the mast could catch the attention of the cursed crew. This belief stems from reports that the Flying Dutchman often appears glowing in the distance, its spectral light visible through thick fog or heavy rain. In some accounts, the Dutchman is said to respond to words of challenge or desperation. Sailors believed that invoking the name of the ship or its captain in moments of peril could summon it. One chilling variation of this belief involves shouting a curse into the wind, challenging the Dutchman to appear. An 18th-century logbook from a British naval vessel recounts a story of sailors taunting the Dutchman by yelling, "Show yourself, you damned ghost," during a storm. According to the account, a ship fitting the Dutchman's description emerged briefly through the mist before vanishing into the night, leaving the crew in stunned silence. Maritime folklore often incorporates the idea of offerings to appease spirits or God. In the case of the Flying Dutchman, some accounts suggest that throwing personal belongings into the sea, such as a navigational tool or even a piece of gold, might attract the ship. This practice is rooted in the belief that the Dutchman's crew, cursed to wander forever, seeks objects of value to restore their lost lives. One famous tale tells of a Dutch merchant who allegedly threw a carved wooden figurine into the waves during a storm, hoping to summon the Dutchman for guidance. According to legend, the ship appeared, but instead of salvation, the merchant vanished along with it, never to be seen again. Those who claim to have summoned the Flying Dutchman describe eerie signs of its approach. The sea grows unnaturally calm, the wind dies down, and a ghostly glow emanates from the horizon. The ship itself is said to emerge suddenly, its spectral form illuminated against the darkness. Accounts differ on what happens next. Some say the crew appears on deck, watching in silence. Others report hearing distant cries or warnings from unseen voices. But in nearly every tale, one thing is clear. Encountering the Dutchman is not a blessing but a warning, a harbinger of disaster that leaves its mark on those who dare to call it forth.